Chapter 3. Our Consciousness.
The knowledge of the time, always a clock, a calendar, makes us think we can plan our lives, believing we have to. But living is not planned. Life is moments, moments of feelings. You can never make a plan for what you will feel. You can never plan a happy future. Only look for joy in every moment and take care of people. People who make you feel loved.
Time. It is the measure of the earth rotating on its axis and revolving around the sun, using mathematics to understand the world and predict future events. She often found herself thinking about how she could have expressed more of her love during their time together. Could she possibly have prevented her friend from experiencing the loneliness, leading her friend to leave this existence? Time is also a perception of the distance between events when moving in space-time, as well as the programming in our bodies that determines the order of events, our biological clock. Experiencing time depends on our focus and the amount of attention we give to it. Our perception of time is a product of the amount of time compared to the years we have lived. When she remembered the scent of her friend, her eyes started to tear. As it is with money, we are born into this world, never knowing how much time we'll have. Time and money are two humanly created concepts used as a way to measure reality and collegiate humanity. 10 years had passed since she lost her friend. The way time is measured is much different from how it is perceived. They continued to share their lives and experiences. He had grown accustomed to having her by his side, talking about everything and nothing. Her jokes and laughter were a daily occurrence that he couldn't imagine living without. Sometimes he felt like they were children, teasing and playing. Once she told him, "Some people criticize me for acting like a child." "Well, hell yeah, I do. Children are innovative and exploratory. If being an adult means following everyone else's rules and doing things you have to do, then what's the point? I might as well be replaced by a machine." She was almost always kind of joking. It made reality feel a little easier. Her friends appreciated her humor, but no one else made her feel at ease in the same way he did. He found new ways to amuse her, often including a brutal statement about the harsh reality we live in. Humor is a way to capture and describe feelings, to describe something hard in a simple matter, playing with misunderstandings that happen as we try to communicate. Just like she did, he was also capable of explaining things in a vivid and beautiful way like the brightest people she knew did. He was calm, yet playfully curious and enthusiastic. She loved how he always seemed eager to learn more. It had become recurrent that he found himself waking up by her side, but he had trouble sleeping this night. His mind would give him no peace until he figured out a solution. The sound of his footsteps left a silent echo as he wandered around in his bedroom. He observed the lights and movement on the streets below. Stars were lost in the city lights, much unlike the sky they observed lying in the meadow. He felt as lost in the city as the stars seemed to be. He could only find solace in nature. As she awakened, she watched him silently before gently offering her observation. "It seems like you're feeling anxious. Maybe you should share your thoughts." Her gaze shifted towards the ceiling, but she still caught glimpses of his movements. He turned towards her briefly, but continued pacing as he replied, "With whom? Who could understand and provide rational thoughts? Who would take the time? And even if they did, no one dares to tell me the truth. Every piece of advice I've received I've already considered. I'm sick of hearing things I already know. No one knows the company as I do. No one knows my life aspirations as I do, except for you. Others only focus on one thing, always the current business, since they are unable to comprehend my vision. I've restructured the entire company, but no one seems to care. They only complain. It works better now, but there's no point in telling them. They don't think about it or want to understand it." They didn't understand the previous structure either, he thought to himself. His voice sounded harsh due to his feelings of desolation, but he wasn't angry with her or his colleagues. Those closest to him cared deeply for him and often offered helpful advice about his life and business. He didn't believe they were useless. He relied on their knowledge, but they had difficulty understanding how his brain processed information. Over the years, he had learned to provide a short and brief explanation that others could understand. When seeking advice in complex situations, he carefully selected whom to ask to ensure he received a well-reasoned answer. He would find wisdom in what others said, and for each piece of advice, he would paint a mental picture to store it in his mind and use it when connecting information. He became frustrated when people were afraid to take action or rejected his solutions without providing reasonable alternatives. He became angry when they refused to accept his logical deduction, them forcing him to go against it while they hid behind excuses and prejudices. He was always dedicated to providing his employees with everything they needed to succeed, and he took pleasure in sharing his ambitious vision with them. However, he found it difficult to accept those who resisted change, unwilling to evolve because it required effort. Instead of embracing new ideas, they expended their energy fighting against change and refusing to understand. Protecting themselves from admitting their inability to adapt to new ideas, they had him thinking. He felt the frustration building up within him as he struggled to comprehend how to break free from the stagnant situation. He yearned for a logical solution to make it all better. As she sat up in bed, her eyes fixed on him. He stood on the other side of the room, his hands clasped over his head. The reflection in the window showed a blurred image of his despondent expression. She remembered how she used to see him with his co-workers or at gatherings, amazed by his kindness and patience with others. He would often be quiet, listening attentively in order to find ways to help them. He would offer thoughtful reflections on the situation, his way of showing care, even if it meant telling them things they might not be ready to hear. She appreciated that he would always try and listen to them. Without being affected by his frustration, she replied in a calm voice, "Well, maybe they don't know you. Most people won't. Most people don't really listen, but I want to. Few people can mentally process information while listening or talking. They need more time. Maybe others are unable to grasp the complexity of the business, your visions, but most of all, you are a complex man. Others may not tell you the truth as you see it because they don't care enough about you or can't handle discussing it. But remember, other people have helped you before by contributing information from which you've learned. Through stories shared in books and movies, you've benefited from others. Even if I don't fully understand it, having an open mind to talk to can help ease a troubled mind. Sometimes just saying these things out loud to someone willing to listen can bring relief." Her voice conveyed her sincere effort to empathize with him, and her reasoning seemed to soothe his anxiety. He listened to her words, feeling a mixture of surprise and discomfort at her astute observations. Her words seemed to have him recall of a voice inside of him. "Well, I would like to take the time to talk to you about it, but these days I am at the office 100 hours a week. Between that and spending time with my kids, I don't know if I could find the time," he replied with a tinge of resignation in his voice. He sat against the windowsill, his face buried in his hands, eyes closed as he attempted to detach himself from the outside world, seeking a solution from within his own mind. "You can't spend one of our nights talking about this with me. Do you really have to work 100 hours a week? This doesn't seem like the priority you once told me you had. You do what you feel like and be free to choose what to think about. I'm just wondering. To be truly happy, you need to be able to do things that interest and amuse you, to feel like doing it. Maybe you've been suppressing your feelings for too long. Well, of course, you've controlled your feelings because you could. Since you felt lonely, you didn't care whether people liked you or not." Her words struck a chord with him, and he looked up from his hands, meeting her gaze for the first time since she started speaking. His expression revealed a mixture of surprise and a subtle hint of realization. She continued, her voice sharp but still filled with empathy. "You used your competence and swayed them, had them admire your success. However, despite this, the feeling of loneliness persists, doesn't it? You still feel the same way as when they despised you, don't you? It doesn't matter if they admire or despise you. You still aren't one among them. What you truly desire is to be seen for who you are, not just envied. You excel at managing numbers, adeptly handling your time and money with efficiency. This pleases you, but you cannot count on or control your feelings in this matter. It is harder. You can't simply command or find solutions for your feelings on your own. Feelings take their own time, time that you wish you could control. You can alter how people perceive you by conforming to their expectations, but it drains your energy to constantly monitor your behavior, and the uncertainty of how they feel adds stress. I know it is intriguing with things that can be measured, that follow structures and patterns rather than the complicated mess feelings are. She noticed a sharp look from him, but she continued, "You've become a master of information, adept at gathering information so that you don't have to rely on others in the same way. It's not that you don't want to share your thoughts and feelings, but you want to share them with someone who truly understands you for who you are, not just for who you know how to be. Sometimes it's easier to focus on solving future problems rather than connecting with people and dealing with the emotions of the present. Let go of those who only want something from you," she continued. "You've been under stress for so long, and your mind needs peace, a break from the pressures of existence and everything around you. Let's travel somewhere and find serenity, seek emotional comfort. I believe that only then will it become clear to you what you need to do." Her voice was eager, but her body language remained calm. He had no arguments in response to her reflections on his behavior. It felt liberating to hear her express these thoughts, to feel heard and to feel understood. "I have all these deadlines coming up. I can't take a vacation," he said, his voice indicating that he had been listening but was not yet convinced. He let his hands down and turned his head to look at her. "As I mentioned before, taking a break can free up your mind to come up with solutions that you need to achieve those deadlines. I know you hate to repeat information, but the information runs loops in your brain. Sometimes you have to hear things 100 times to fully grasp its meaning, to structure and process the information in a different but safe and silent environment. By repeating information, we learn to foresee what will happen," she explained, her voice filled with determination. He couldn't help but grin at her words. "I appreciate how you can be so annoying. Most people are just boring, but you annoy the shit out of me with your reasoning," he said, his eyes showing fondness as he spoke. "It's always nice to get insightful advice." There was a moment of silence, and then they heard the coffee maker switch turn off in the kitchen. Sitting silently at the kitchen table with her first cup of coffee, she watched as the oat drink merged with the black coffee, causing chaos and increasing entropy. The heat evened out, eventually reaching a new solid state at room temperature. Lost in her thoughts and her working understanding of the universe's eventual state of maximum entropy, she shared her musings with him. "You know, the world around us is built on different mathematical structures that organize particles, causing them to float and fluctuate, almost like dancing in fields. Everything is always in motion. Elementary particles, electrons, and quarks come together to form atoms and matter. This is our current understanding of how the universe is coded and how life itself is made possible for our bodies and minds. Our social groups have shaped our perception of the world in a way that allows us to collaborate with other human beings in our quest to evolve, survive, and save life from destruction. In order to do so, we must make it better for the next generation. It's not surprising that we feel such deep emotions for our children. That has to be the case so that we fulfill the endeavor that is to survive, all in order to survive and save the children. It's also not surprising that we have a strong drive to improve and make things more efficient. It's encoded in our DNA." He looked at her, intrigued, wondering where her thoughts would lead next. He followed her with his eyes as she continued. "Imagination is a powerful trait, but for those with great imagination, it's important to strike a balance between how they perceive the universe and how it's perceived by the majority. Otherwise, they may risk losing connection with the group and the ability to communicate with others. Even when our ambitions surpass what society can perceive as reality, it's still important to connect with others. That's why we are so dependent on those around us, the people we have by our side. Others may perceive us as mad or strange if they can't simply understand us, leading us to associate ourselves in that manner. But if just one person understands, it could be enough to save us from losing our minds. Some of us lose our minds in loneliness. I have experienced that loneliness for a long time, longing to connect with someone who truly understands. Her eyes shifted from the coffee mug, now fully blended with the oat drink, lost in her thoughts. She was grateful for her friends. As she got to know them, she could be herself without holding back. With them she could grow, even if they didn't fully understand her. They would still accept her, just as she accepted them, even though she couldn't fully understand them either. He smirked and replied as he stood up and walked to the kitchen counter to pour himself another cup of coffee. "Oh, dear, you sound like such a wacko, but it makes sense when you put it like that." "I know, right? I don't think you're mad, at least not yet, but you have the potential to be," she said, smiling at him. "Some of us have great potential, but we're also influenced by the people and circumstances around us, and whether we can open ourselves up or not." She said it with care and love, not that others might get it, he thought to himself, but he knew her. She had noticed how he tended to hold back, even among friends, seemingly making bold statements, but still keeping them at a distance. She knew there was a part of him they didn't know. She understood how hard it was for her to trust others and expect something from them, but she also knew that it had strengthened their relationship when she did. Even so, she knew he held back because she did too. She had observed their pattern. He sounded amused as he replied, "Well, when they tell you about me that I was fucking mad, they're right." She heard the playfulness in his voice. She replied with a smirk and rolling eyes. He placed the coffee mug on the kitchen table and came up behind her chair, wrapping his arms around her. He couldn't resist nuzzling his nose in her hair, consuming the scent that almost made him feel intoxicated. He thought about what she had tried to tell him. There's a difference between being accepted and being understood, between being appreciated for your actions and being understood for the intentions behind them. She rested her head against his arm, contemplating how much she cherished his presence. She spoke with a reflective tone. If we've ever felt lonely or excluded, our instinct drives us to avoid that feeling at all costs. It's the reason why many people hold on, trying to salvage unhealthy relationships. Even if we may not be physically alone, we still need those who truly understand and know us for who we are. Staying in a relationship where you are not appreciated or understood can actually amplify the sense of loneliness. When feeling lonely and depressed, we often see others as potential threats, making it harder to connect with them. Despite claims of self-sufficiency, it's not entirely true. We still need to feel that we have people we can rely on when needed, to feel needed and useful to others. It's what keeps us sane. That being said, I don't wish to marry again. He softly snorted, still standing behind her with his arms around her. She continued in a cheerful voice, "Although I would love to learn everything you know if you're willing to share it with me. I guess it could mean us spending a lifetime together." "Always learning from each other," he smiled. "Always learning more," she replied, looking up at him and returning the smile. "You have such strong opinions about everything, don't you? The world won't stand a chance as you figure it out," he said, sniggering as he lifted her hair and kissed her neck. "Yeah, quite tedious, don't you think?" She responded with sarcasm, sighing with enjoyment at his affection and twisting her head to reveal her neck, longing for his kisses to continue. "Never," he said, and let his kisses follow her lead. "Well, you know, never say never," she playfully replied. Then there was no more talking. They experienced each other's presence only through their bodies. As they sat down to finish their now room-temperature second cup of coffee, feeling relaxed, but aware of the clock reminding them of their impending need to leave for work, she couldn't help but feel frustrated. She shared her thoughts with him. We have more material possessions, food, and access to better health care than we could have ever imagined 100 years ago. Yet more and more people feel lonely. It's not natural for humans to operate on such a large scale of relationships that we go through in life just to keep up with the system. With everyone selling their time at work or trying to find a job, there's less and less time for genuine care and support for each other whenever we need it. Being constantly ruled by the clock prevents us from showing small gestures of inclusivity, actions that make us feel like a part of a community. We now buy services instead of truly helping each other out. This is why many people feel like they have no one to rely on. Their relationships become superficial as they try to keep up with the demands of life. It's challenging for humans to live in this new world that revolves around time frames. We are meant to cooperate in smaller groups throughout our lives, not in this abundance of disconnected communities over time. We lose track of the people around us, and we lose track of ourselves. There are things about ourselves that we can't see, and that's why we need others to reflect it back to us. People who are close to us, who care and understand, can tell us even when we don't want to hear it, but need to hear it in order to grow. He looked at the clock ticking on the kitchen wall, his eyes focused as he processed her words. As his gaze wandered, he couldn't help but notice her reflection in the window, admiring the contours of her beauty. It felt like a scene from a movie. Even if he never wanted to stay amongst the same group he grew up in, the struggle to keep up with everyone around him was challenging. People changed jobs, neighbors moved, and he moved too. His kids had different friends in school, and it was hard to keep up with their relationships as well. Even with the friends he considered close, it was difficult to find time to meet outside of work with often so many people coming together, so much to talk about. He appreciated his conversations with her. They had space for silence and reflection, as well as engaging in each other's ideas. However, he felt like he had less time to spend with her as well. It seemed like there was never enough time to keep it all together. As his thoughts wandered, he asked her, "But why is it that when we feel lonely or misunderstood, we often exhibit behavior that makes it harder to cooperate, like pushing those around us? Is it because we're trying to make ourselves feel safe? I used to push others by continuing to ask questions they weren't ready to answer or hadn't figured out yet. I just felt the need to get an answer. But when they didn't respond as I wanted them to or seemed unable to understand me, I would feel even more lonely, and the feeling would just get worse." This was a common problem for him when he tried to present an idea or solution that others didn't seem to grasp. He knew his colleagues and friends would get frustrated with him, sometimes thinking he didn't care about their feelings, even though he was often proven right in the end. He would be considered cold and unempathetic, and they would get mad at him. But eventually, they would come to appreciate his ideas and follow his lead. But he had to hear lots of shit before they got there. He understood that people worked differently from him and vice versa, but knowing that didn't enable him to work the same way as them. On the occasions when he was wrong, he was grateful for being proved wrong, appreciating someone who had listened and shared their knowledge in a way that he could understand. She gazed at him, reflecting on how his impatient pursuit of goals was one of the things she admired most about him. She enjoyed keeping up with his wild, innovative ideas and sudden shifts in direction, all of which followed a discernible pattern that she comprehended and respected. She also recognized the behavior of pushing others from her own experience, which impacted both of their lives. With a compassionate tone, she responded, "Pushing others can cause frustration and stress, but I understand that you do it for similar reasons. Sometimes you long for a sense of control when you feel like you can't rely on them, when you're not understanding each other's perspectives. Trust between people is built on an emotional bond that acknowledges our need for each other. It is hard to follow the logic behind it, but it is necessary for us in order to survive. Humans are deeply entangled with each other. Most people need time to adapt to new ideas and process them emotionally, as you mentioned, and often neither you nor they know how long that may take. You can only express what you think or feel, and then it's up to them to decide. Otherwise, they may feel forced to do so. Some changes need to be made, and they must choose to follow your lead or leave while you listen to their communication of their needs. It's also important to understand what you can truly offer and be clear with yourself when communicating with those who may not understand you. When stressed, our bodies perceive a threat of harm or danger, and we may not have the luxury of time to carefully consider our actions. It forces us to do what's necessary to survive. Fight or flight. The brain functions that enable us to focus, reflect, analyze, or empathize are diminished, including our ability to understand others' perspectives in a situation. Even though it may seem like they don't care, many people do, just like you. It's just particularly challenging for those under stress to comprehend, and the same goes for us. Taking a moment to calm yourself and reflect on your contributions in a situation with others can heighten your awareness of how you're influencing the situation and help you understand when you're becoming stressed. It can guide you towards better expressing your intentions to others, no matter whom you're communicating with. She realized that her own behavior had sometimes led her to exert control over others unintentionally. All she wished for was for them to understand her. Yeah, you're right. The only behavior I should try to control is my own, he agreed, finding himself in alignment with her thoughts. Yeah, you never want to hurt anyone, right? You don't want to force them to do or feel what you want just for your own sake. You want them to understand why. No intelligent being would choose violence or cause distress when there's a chance to talk it through. You want them to be authentic. You do what you do to make the world better, but sometimes you end up hurting others if they're not emotionally ready to hear your perspective. You want to be able to make mistakes, admit when you're wrong, and learn from it without fear of others judging your ideas before hearing them out. You want people to be curious about your ideas, but it's hard to find those who accept you for who you are and can truly connect with you. Even harder to create and withhold a connection. I used to spend time trying to be like others, focusing on what they did. Now I surround myself with people who accept me as I am, and I spend the rest of my time dreaming. I love the way time seems to stop when I make connections in my mind, or when I talk to you about it. It feels magical until I fully grasp it. I usually master it once I understand its relevance and can connect it to everything else. I love linking new ideas with old and new information. I don't know how many times my understanding has changed, but I'm grateful every time I figure something out. I think I understand the world, but then I learn something new, and my perception changes again. As she finished speaking, she looked at him with an irrepressible expression. He sat across the table from her, his body immersed in the chair, a smile on his face as he reflected on her words. "You're such an artistic mess," he said, referencing her earlier comment, "and you know how my brain works. I can't help but try to understand things that others find impossible to comprehend." He paused for a moment, correcting himself. "Well, actually, I don't think you're a mess at all. I see you as a reasonable human being, regardless of what others may think. In fact, you're the most intriguing person I've ever met. Your thirst for knowledge is simply amazing. Most people are willing to pay others a lot to avoid expanding theirs." She looked at him with a reserved expression, clearly flattered by his comment. His mind felt clear, and he realized that his anxiety had dissipated during their time together. Once again, he could breathe freely. New connections flourished in his mind, filling him with a sense of inspiration and motivation. Glancing at the clock, he realized they needed to leave soon to be on time for work. 661869487412 steady electromagnetic pulses had been counted from vibrating cesium-133 atoms.